Hello wonderful people, Connor Whitmore here again with another video for you on the Nawtystep channel, and today gonna be doing something a little bit different, gonna be moving away momentarily from the reviewing, the reacting, which as you all know is the main part of the channel, covering bass music of all kinds in that way, to talk about an event that I went to a couple of days ago, I think 5 days ago now, yeah, it was on Friday. The UKF 15 event, which was a celebration of UKF, I think for me, arguably the biggest promotion network when it comes to bass music, turning 15 years old, which was quite wild in a way, thinking about how much time has passed, but also because I thought it had been way longer than that. I don't know, maybe that's just me. But anyway, they put on the event at Drumsheds, which is in Tottenham in North London, for those that don't know. Relatively new venue, massive venue. It is a converted IKEA, for those that don't know, and is kind of filling the gap that had been left by Printworks, another legendary recent electronic venue, which was also a bit of a warehouse situation, you know, big venues that we're talking about here. So yeah, arguably the biggest promotion network in the history of modern bass music, teaming up with the biggest venue in London, which is where a lot of this music kind of started out, and they delivered with the lineup. Before anything else had happened, the lineup, the setup of the event was incredible. You had loads of legendary names on there, from Pendulum to Koki to Joker to Flux Pavilion to Knife Party. And then to go with that, a load of very big of the moment names as well, like Imanu, Taiken Ulai, MPH, I can go on. And given the recent resurgence in the last, I don't know, couple of years or so, maybe 2-3 years or so, of bass music in the UK, talking about dubstep and drum and bass, I think in particular, this was, again, given everything I've said already, just set to be a fantastic night. Everything on paper was there to make it something to remember, a night that no one would ever forget. And it will be remembered, but unfortunately mostly for the wrong reasons, because this event did not go well. A lot of bad things happened. It was not received well by most of the 15k people I think that went, myself to an extent included, which I'm going to explain in this video. It was bad enough that it reached the mainstream news. That from the off, before we get into everything else, should tell you enough. Now, my intention here with this video is not to hate or berate or get everyone to kind of hone in on a particular individual or corporation or organization and just kind of pile in on them, you know, whoever it may be. It's more that, again, this kind of music, bass music, is really on the up in the UK once more, and this level of event that we had right here, we want to have it more frequently for this kind of music. We want to have that space and these kind of nights to celebrate this music that we love, right? And build that community even more. But if they are to happen again in the near future, then a lot of things will have to be done completely differently. And also maybe potentially that there should be a shift in perspective, generally speaking, when it comes to how bass music and the bass community is perceived and viewed within the context of electronic music overall, because I think that that might have inspired a little bit of what happened last Friday. Because the first thing that I have to raise here is that the queue took over 2 hours to get in. 2 hours. I got there with my friends at 8 o'clock or just after, and got into the venue ready to see the first act that we wanted to see around 10:30. That's a long time. Long enough that some people were having to piss themselves in the queue because there were no available toilets around, and everyone was pressed in like sardines. Now at this point you might come back and say, well, that's hardly surprising. You're trying to manage 15k people, what with the event being completely sold out, and I definitely hear that. But beyond the mass of people that it was, it's about how everyone was managed that doesn't sit quite right with me, and I imagine many others that went to the event. It was a potential crowd crush situation for 2 hours, which is obviously very dangerous. And this didn't only happen outside the venue when people were queuing for the event just to get in, but also inside when people were queuing for acts like Pendulum and various other moments here and there from what I've heard. It was extremely claustrophobic and just didn't feel particularly safe, even if, from my experience anyway, most people around me in the, you know, near vicinity were being pretty respectful. There wasn't that much charging going on. There were little bits here and there, especially as you got towards the end of the queue. But mostly people were trying to keep it under control because they could sense as well, I think, that yeah, this is just way too many people in a small space. But this happened, this massive people happened, because there were 3 levels of checking. So you had to go through all of that, as we did for roughly 2 hours or so. Then there was a rigorous searching process where, you know, obviously you take everything out, you show that. That took a fair bit longer than it usually does, I would say. And then there was a sniffer dog process as well. And if you were held behind by that and given an extra search, another search after all of that, then it was another hour on top of that apparently. All of which happened, by the way, without IDs being checked once. Does that make sense to anyone? And let me say for the record that when we got past all the security initially, I found myself grateful and thankful because this was a venue that was taking safety. Okay, there's a little bit of irony there with how we were treated in the first part of the queue, but the detail of it, how thorough it was, how it was all kind of broken down, I was like, okay, yeah, this is a venue that is taking safety seriously. But then I got talking to people inside the venue who had been there for different events in the past. And all of them, to a man and woman, said that it's never been like that before. That usually you walk through pretty quickly, pretty casually, security is nowhere near as full on, you've arrived at the venue, and then you're in the venue within minutes, basically. And I was stood there listening, having these conversations with people, just thinking, why this extensive treatment for a bass music event? And then I thought, maybe because of how many people there are, and that maybe they hadn't had a sold out event like that in a very long time. But then I thought, actually, does that make complete sense? Like, does more people mean lengthier checks and different kinds of checks than usual? Or maybe, is it potentially the case that there's an assumption in the wider context of electronic music, the community, that bass music fans are more aggressive because the music, generally speaking, is a little bit more angry, it's a little bit darker, a bit more direct and that kind of thing. Were they being more careful, thinking it would draw a certain crowd, so to speak? Regardless, it was quite the ordeal, both before the event, queuing before the event, and within the event itself. And I know that I and many other people who went within the 15k again ended up missing a lot of sets that we've been waiting a very, very long time to see. And as an extension of that point before, so, you know, when we were getting into the venue, maybe just before that, when we had the second check and the third check, that felt extremely overstaffed in that you had loads of people checking everything you had, your general get-up and all that kind of thing. But once you got past that and actually into the venue, it actually felt like the exact opposite, like there wasn't anywhere near enough manning of what was going on and just generally very chaotic. I personally had several separate experiences, as did friends of mine actually, of asking security where things were, quite specifically, and them having no idea at all. Now I will temper that by saying it was my first time at Drumsheds, and so I was a little bit all over the place, kind of constantly trying to figure out where everything was, and once the event got into its stride a bit, there's a lot of people there, so that makes it, you know, kind of automatically even more manic. But then you read other accounts of people saying they were manhandled, or not being allowed to exit certain areas of the venue, or having doors kind of closed on them, trying to get into other parts of the venue with absolutely no communication at all. Also, for most of the night, felt pretty disorientated because the signage was so poor. There were multiple points in the night where my group and I just had no idea where to find a particular room, or what led to where, or where you could go, where you couldn't go. Multiple bar points around the venue ran out of certain kinds of alcohol about 2/3 of the way through the event, which in a way, not a particularly bad thing, because £7.30 for 440 millilitres of beer, I mean, I have absolutely no problem at all in calling that out. How is that allowed? But this was a huge event, and many, if not most, want to have a drink. They want to enjoy the night and the event in that way. And several, as I said, of the drinks, in particular bar points in the venue, had completely run out. And it is just a bit of a shame. It is a little bit disappointing knowing that the preparation just wasn't really there for such a significant event. Maybe the fact that it was the final show in the Drumsheds season of the whole of 2024, and maybe also the fact actually that bass music within electronic music, again, often not taken that seriously, kind of pushed to the side a little bit when we're talking about electronic music overall. Maybe those things speak a little bit to the pitfalls in the organisation that we got here. The sound quality, I'm afraid to say, was also mostly pretty poor. The one room where I thought it was consistently great was the Y room, where me and the people I was with, We saw Emanu back-to-back Boonshin, back-to-back the Caracal Project. That was very good. Flux Pavilion, who also played in that room, I heard was also very good. Unfortunately, he clashed with Pendulum. Hadn't seen Pendulum in a long time, many, many years, and I saw Flux multiple times, well, a couple of times more recently, so that kind of made that decision for me. But yeah, unfortunately, the sound overall not very good, and I feel especially bad for Nawtystep, who apparently were playing their first full band gig in like 10 years or something like that, and there were all kinds of technical difficulties and cuts in sound and stuff of that variety. One that I was quite gutted to miss before I heard about all of that, but of course I couldn't see it because I was in the queue. Though my friend, who's a hardcore Nawtystep fan, knows all the songs really well, you know, massive fan of their music, their discography, everything. She went, she saw most of it, got there maybe 5 or 10 minutes into their set, and she was close to where they were playing, said she couldn't even make out what songs were being played, and that initially, and for a lot of the set, there were maybe 500 to 1,000 people there, when the cap for that particular room was 10,000 or something like that. The sound for Taiki New Light's set in the Z room was all kinds of imbalanced, unfortunately, because it seemed like maybe around halfway through his set, like half the speakers turned off in certain parts of the room, which was really odd, and then the MC Capo Lee, he was way louder as a result than Taiki New Light. It just didn't sound good. Pendulum's live band sound didn't travel particularly well in the main X room, which is a massive room, a huge room to be fair, but you could really hear the difference when they did a Knife Party set. Well, 2 of them did, Rob and Gareth obviously. Directly after Pendulum, they did their set, and you could really hear the difference between, again, the live band, the instrumentation, and the CDJs. And I should have more sets to talk about, but those were the only ones we were able to see, really. Now, I do want to go over some positives. I thought the lighting and production were generally very good, especially as the night went on, and we went towards, you know, your Pendulums, your Knife Parties, that kind of thing. In the X room and the Y room, yeah, I thought the general visual setups were very good. I also, and this is just my experience, so it might have been different for you guys watching if you went to the event as well, but I found bathrooms to be pretty accessible, generally speaking, across the venue, and also water I thought was pretty widely available across the venue as well. Again, just my experience, could have been different for you guys. And also from my own experience, I thought the organisation was actually pretty good, weirdly at the end, where people were being kind of ferried out. I thought that was quite efficient, and the cloakroom situation was quite quick and quite simple as well. Getting people onto buses in their thousands was obviously a difficult task, a difficult job, but I thought they did a pretty good job at that. And yeah, some of the sets were very good, great even. I mean, it was amazing seeing Pendulum again after so many years. And that was, I think, the moment, even if, you know, at points the sound didn't travel that well across the entirety of that main massive room, to be there with thousands of other people singing along to all these songs, it really did kind of remind me of the very best of the bass community and everything that bass music can offer. The range of music that Knife Party played to close the event was a great finish as well, I thought. But the scariness of the beginning, how people were treated both inside and outside the venue through different levels of entry and security and that kind of thing, is sticking in my head and not really leaving. I'm not complaining for the sake of it, and I really hope that that isn't how this has come across in this video, how I've presented all of this information. I don't want to point the finger or portion blame anywhere in particular. You know, UKF will be gutted. They will be really, really upset with this kind of feedback, how the night, how the event went generally. They'll hate that. All of this bad happening, which is really, essentially, out of their control. But yeah, once more, we want this kind of event to happen again. And if it does, it has to be managed a lot better. It was frightening and scary at times, if we're being completely frank, and it felt unsafe. For UK fans of bass music, this was a mammoth, generational event that had months and months of build-up. If not years, really, if we're being completely honest about it, because of the fact that we hadn't had an event like this for so long. So many years. And it just feels like the level of organisation requisite for an event of this kind simply wasn't there. And that cost as much as it did, I hasten to add. The ticket itself, but also there were loads of people travelling in from different parts of Europe just for that event. So, yeah, need I say more? I mean, it's got to the point that a petition's been started demanding refunds and accountability from Drumsheds. So, It's clearly affected a lot of people in a very bad way. Drumsheds have also been deleting and removing negative comments from their social media posts about the event, about the night, deleting and removing Google reviews as well. I mean, yeah, come on guys, like, not the best look. This amount of people were allowed to get a ticket, so I'm sorry. But if things go wrong, if things go bad, and you guys have enabled that, then you have to take the criticism. You have to stand there and accept it when things don't go well. I wanted to make this video earlier just so that it was a bit fresher, a bit more relevant, if you know what I mean. But I didn't really want to because updates were happening every single day. And on that note, we have actually had a step in the right direction in an acknowledgement, an apology of some sort from UKF, just getting my phone out here, who are working to address all feedback, have spoken directly with Drumsheds, and they care deeply about ensuring every event is an incredible experience. And, you know, just a very simple apology so far, but it is an important step, I think. And to my knowledge, yet to hear anything from Drumsheds yet. What happens going forward with that? What's going to be resolved? I don't know. But I just want to reiterate again that if we do want to do this event again, and I imagine many people do, you know, I think a lot of people would like to relive that kind of event, that kind of night, just with different goings on, of course. But if we want that, again, things have to be done far differently. We need to learn from this and just be wary of what can be done differently going forward for a kind of event that we all want to happen again. To be honest though, not even sure what the next best alternative would be for a venue, a multi-room venue, for an event as big as that. Like, what would you even go for? If you have good suggestions, please do leave them in the comment section down below. Would be really interested to see what kind of ideas people have for that. And I will leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, even if it was a little bit more frank and downbeat and a bit more real, perhaps, than the usual reviewing and reacting that I do here on the channel. If you're new, if you haven't watched one of my videos before, this is the first video you've seen of mine, then yeah, that is what this channel usually consists of. Coverage of bass music, whether it is commentary, again, or reviews, or reactions, or anything like that. So yeah, if that's something that interests you, please do consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video. If you enjoyed it, it costs you nothing and it helps me out a ton. But yeah, appreciate you guys for all of that. Here is to the next one. Let's move forward in this with good energy and positive feeling that it can happen again in a very big and a very good way. All the UK people anyway, who are going to be going to this potential new show somewhere in the future. Let's make it happen and let's make sure that everything is correct and done right for that particular event. But again, yeah, thank you very much again, guys, for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one, whatever that might be. Keep it naughty until then. Peace.